Hello and welcome to the Sheffield Hopcast. Now, there's little signs of life getting back to normal. And, in a normal world, next weekend would be Peakender. So Peakender 2020 should be starting, will actually be starting this coming Friday. And of course, it's not happening, along with many, many events. It's unfortunately because of the pandemic situation is not going to be taking place. But fear not, because we are here to create our own mini Peakender, which we're doing indoors rather than outdoors because it's not stopped raining all afternoon, and reminisce our stories of Peakender from yesteryear. Anyone that doesn't know, Peakender is a 3-day beer festival that is held at Bakewell Showground, organised by Thornbridge with lots of other breweries there, and there is camping in fields and animals and all kinds of things. But we'll chat about Peakender as we go along. We've got a guest with us who we will meet in a little while. But first of all, let's meet the guys. So let's go to Sean first. Good evening, Sean.
Evening, everybody. Yeah, it is still raining here. It did stop actually, but it is still raining here at the moment, so it seems appropriate that we're talking about the potential. I'm guessing you three who have been all camped while you were there, or did any of you stay in a local hotel and get taxis to and from the festival? But it seems appropriate for it to be raining when we're just about to talk about a camp-based festival. Camping-based festival.
Who are you calling camp?
I haven't been very original at all with my. I didn't know until yesterday. You guys helped explain that there was a Peakender box, and so the choice of beers was quite a wide one. But I'd not realised that until I got home yesterday. So I stayed very safe, both to Peakender and to Alice. And I've gone for a Thornbridge beer, and so it's one of the new set of Halcyon cans. I've gone for pineapple. It made me think about a potential series for, or something we can just discuss anyway. Products that you don't like in real life that you do like in beer, and pineapple is one of mine. Coffee is another one of mine. And so there's two to throw in the hat. Things I don't like in the real world, but stick them in a 7.4% Imperial IPA. I'll lap them up. Thanks very much.
Funny that, isn't it? How suddenly everything becomes palatable with 7% of alcohol thrown into it. Brilliant. I should have explained that our theme for beer choices tonight is obviously Peakender. Now, it doesn't. There is a Peakender box that Thornbridge have released. We'll talk about that in a little while. It doesn't have to be a beer that's in that box. Just anything that's kind of in some way inspired by Peakender. So sure, that's a perfectly acceptable choice because obviously, should it be happening, I'm sure that is one of the beers that we'll be pouring at Peakender next weekend. I am drawn to Laura for many reasons, but in terms of your beer attire, you've stepped up to the plate this weekend, Laura, with your Peakender top. This is excellent.
Yeah, I thought I should stick to the theme, so got this one out. It's one of my favourite t-shirts actually. It's really soft and lovely. But the beer that I have gone for is one of the ones that is featured in the box. It's also a favourite of mine. It's Baby-Faced Assassin from Roosters, 6.1% IPA. Been one of my favourites for quite a long time. I think originally recommended to me because somebody said that if I was an assassin, I would indeed be a baby-faced one. I feel like lockdown has taken its toll on my youthful looks recently, but nonetheless, I'm still cracking into this tonight. So that's why I've picked this one.
Good choice. Adam, hello.
Hello. I'm about an hour back off my holiday, literally. Arrived back about 5 o'clock now, 6:10.
Tell us that you haven't been to France.
No. I've been closer to France than we are here. But just been with the family in Suffolk for a week. I've got a bit of a suntan, but you probably can't see because it's live. But so my beer's been a bit limited because Suffolk's a tricky one. It seems to be 99.9998% Adnams, and anything else is quite hard to find. So I have gone for a little link to Thornbridge. We aren't going for Thornbridge because I do drink quite a lot of Thornbridge beers. I have a Thornbridge t-shirt though. I noticed with some Tiny Rebel mentioned that. I know this is a beer from Tiny Rebel and Polly's Brew Co, which you can get in Tesco, and it's also a pineapple beer. It's Pineapple Express IPA, 6%. I have had it before, and it's one of the kind of Tiny Rebel ones. I do like it because I'm not very adjuncty kind of a fan of that sort of beer, but this one I remember actually being quite surprised and how good it is. I've not had it for a long time. I've not even seen it for a long time, so I thought I'd pick it up again. And but yeah, I'm repping my Green Mountain t-shirt that I got from James Buxton at Indie Beer Feast. He threw it at me. I played later on in the day, so yeah, that's what I've come for.
Good stuff. And the big question, Adam, is: do you like pineapples in real life or only when added to alcohol?
No, I'm a fan of pineapples in real life.
Can you think of anything, Adam, that you don't like, that you love in beer or enjoy in beer?
That I don't like in real life. It's usually the other way around, but actually, whereas I'll have to think about it. Come back to me, I think.
Yeah.
I remember having a rhubarb beer in the not too distant past and enjoying that. And I wouldn't describe myself as a fan of rhubarb beers. And I'm also drawn to thinking about I don't know if they still do it or not, the Foraged series that Lost Industry did, with stuff like nettles and weird things like that, which I would never normally kind of think, oh, I'll just mouthful of nettles, lovely, but works in a beer. So there we go. I'm going to look a little bit sort of like I'm copying Adam, sort of, not the beer, but see, the beer that I've gone for is Green Mountain, and there are reasons for this, and this is where we start to stray a little into stories of Peakender, but I'll keep it fairly brief for this one. So Peakender 2018, which was the most glorious of glorious sunny weekends. The weather was just absolutely just beautiful, superb. You could not have had better weather for a 3-day outdoor beer festival. And we recorded a podcast there, which is still out there in the I think it was a Hopcast, wasn't it? So it's on the feed, so if you kind of scroll back through, you'll be able to find it. There's a bit of drunkenness going on there, but this really was the beer of the weekend that I drank various different things and just found myself drawn back to Green Mountain over the course of the weekend, because when you drink it in the sun, it's not that advisable to drink anything too strong. Sean would be on his 7.4% pineapples, but I'd play it sensible. 4.3% Green Mountain just became the beer of the weekend. So I couldn't go for anything other than that. Can I point out as well that I've got I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but my Peakender 2018 glass, which was the actual one, plastic glass. What did we agree they were called? Plas. Which
Beaker
was the one I had for the weekend in the at the showground that I brought home with me, and I've kept ever since. So I think I'm going true, authentic Peakender 2018 here. So I'm quite impressed with that. Right then, let's meet our guest. Good evening, Alice. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you for joining us. We should really get you to kind of, I guess, introduce yourself, because it's been a little while since we've had a guest who we've maybe not had on before, or wasn't already kind of like known to one of us or something like that. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a brewer at Thornbridge. I've been working there for about, just under a year now. I previously worked at Brewster's in Grantham. Do you guys know of Brewster's? Yeah. So I worked with Sarah for about 2 years there. And then before that, I did my MSc in brewing science at Nottingham. And when I was like kind of growing up and through uni and everything, I never really thought I'd be a brewer, but I actually have grown up in a brewing family. So my family back home own a very local regional cask brewery. But I actually went off to uni and did English in Leeds, and I've just sort of ended up brewing really, and I love it. I never kind of thought that I would, and there was never any pressure from my family to sort of go into it, but like a couple of years down the line, and I'm just really enjoying it, just trying to take it all in really at Thornbridge, because it's such a different scale compared to kind of what I'm used to, so there's a lot to learn.
Brill. We will have a million questions for you over the coming minutes, but the big one, the most important question, first of all, is what beer have you got?
I have actually got a Thornbridge beer, obviously. It's Zara. I really like it because I'm a massive fan of pilsners and lagers and those kind of things at the moment. I think I've kind of like overdone the IPAs, and I'm really getting into just super clean stuff. And I think the first time that I brewed a lager was actually at Brewster's, and tasting it out of the tank when it's fermenting, that really made me kind of appreciate lagers for the first time. And yeah, this is a different one. It's a bit of a hybrid one, but yeah, that's what I'm enjoying this evening.
I sometimes feel like Zara is kind of like the forgotten beer of Thornbridge, because it kind of does go a little bit unnoticed, and sometimes I kind of think about it in a reminiscing kind of way, as if like it's a past thing and then it doesn't exist anymore. But of course, you know, it does. And I think when Lucas came along and kind of became the headline lager, and I'm sure that's something that we'll talk about, because you know, we've all kind of had Lucas experiences at Peakender, but you know, that kind of, it was kind of like Big Brother and kind of stole all the attention and everything like that. And Zara just quietly in the background there continues to be a great beer. So good choice, good stuff. So Peakender would be in, well, a few days away from now. Alice, this is really devastating, because this would be your first Peakender, and of course it's not happening.
I know, I'm gutted. I'm really annoyed about it.
What have the rest of the team at Thornbridge, what have they told you about Peakender? How's it been bigged up to you?
I have heard some horror stories, I'm not going to lie. I heard quite a bit about last year's rain as well. Was that a really wet and muddy one? And I've heard like tents kind of disappearing down the river, and yeah.
I think at this point we have to hand over to Laura for Laura's story of Peakender 2019.
Yeah, our tent didn't float away down the river, but our camping stove did, because the kind of front of the tent got completely flooded. But it was quite a nice moment in a way, because we'd just been listening to a talk in one of the tents in a beer tasting, and I drank half a bottle of Necessary Evil, so I was feeling really lovely and warm and fuzzy. And then there was this message over the sound system, like, if anybody's camped in the area behind the main stage, which is exactly where we were, you might want to return to your tents. So I kind of scuttled off in my merry little way, following my Imperial Stout, to find that our tent was completely flooded. But so many people, mainly kind of people from who'd been in the talk and other Thornbridge staff and things, just all rushed over to help us all move our stuff and make sure that we were safe and had enough things that were dry. So it was one of those things where I could have had a tantrum and wanted to go home, but I didn't at all. I was just like, this is such a nice festival, and I don't care that all my stuff is soaking wet through. And yeah, it was fine. I was just a little bit damp for the weekend. It's one of those things that just shows the kind of people power at something like that, and how much everyone kind of just pulled together. You know, everyone was soaked. The whole ground was a swamp, but everyone was just like, let's go on with it. We're here. Let's have a nice time. There's plenty of beer. And it was still a brilliant weekend. So
just thinking about it, Laura, actually, just as you were saying it, is when you looked at how bad it was just, you couldn't imagine how bad it couldn't be any worse, really, apart from it actually having to swim around it.
It was like over the top. It was welly high.
Over the wellies, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't see anybody complaining or moaning. Everyone just kind of just got on with it, really. It was just kind of quite cool. I think the only problem were, because of some of the main areas where you would be kind of stood, you know, to actually spread people out a little bit, you couldn't do it. So you kind of like bunched around the edges a little bit, which is just unfortunate. But yeah, I think everyone did what they could do out of that bad situation. And yeah, I mean, I kind of got fond memories, because James and I did a few comparing for the some of the Meet the Brewer sessions, which was really good. But that were all done in a bit of a mad panic. I think I got there with about an hour to spare between putting my tent up and then realising how difficult putting a tent up on, essentially on water, and it was, with a then 4-year-old in tow as well. So that was quite fun. But yeah, it was quite funny because I got some reminders. Obviously, you get your phone gives you reminders, isn't it, yearly about what happened last year and year before. But yeah, my first time would have been 2 years ago, and we took my then 3-year-old. I think we went for the day. I didn't camp that time, but weather was perfect. Sitting on hay bales, listening to some music, and just generally having a good time and checking out the beers. But yeah, just looking at them photos, just thinking, oh yeah, it's a really good time. But I'm quite interested in Sean because I want to know what would make Sean, what would need to happen for a beer festival to make Sean go to camp, because you're quite vocal about not really being your kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not an anti-Peakender thing at all. I don't mind going to beer festivals, of course, but then I like to escape. I like to escape. The last time that I went to a beer festival and then slept in a field with everyone else that was at the beer festival, which is how I see it, was for the Tour de France. I camped with my dad up near the Flouch roundabout, and there was a beer festival the night before that. So I don't know, Adam. That's a good question, really. I don't like too many people all the time, and so it does feel as if it would be difficult to get away. You are there to convince me. Is it easy to get away and have a quiet few hours there as well?
This is a thing that I was surprised. You think, like, I've been to music festivals and usually beer plus camping equals chaos.
Yeah.
I think it attracts like a more, I don't know, I don't want to kind of insult people who go to music festivals, but kind of, I think people go to like really into the beer, aren't they? They're not there just to drink 24 cans of Carlin on a corner. But I mean, like I said, I took a small child and camped there quite happily. So I suppose that kind of shows you that you don't feel unsafe or people being rowdy and stuff. It just you tend to be felt quite calm at the evenings.
Quite orderly, did it?
Yeah,
it just feel like a very grown up kind of event, doesn't it? And there
quiet
were
at the
younger
evening.
people there, but they're generally the more sensible younger people because of the nature of the event. It's not something that you're wandering through town and you stumble across. Even if you were in the middle of Bakewell, you'd still need to know what you were looking for to find it. And it's obviously it's not a free thing. Like, you've got to buy your ticket. So it's I think it's people that just generally kind of know and appreciate what kind of event it's going to be. Of course, the elephant in the room, that's the right phrase, isn't it, here, is that Sean, you are kind of like, be a celebrity in your own right. So you'd have no chance of getting a bit of quiet time by yourself. I should point out, though, that last year was the first time that they had glamping. And so you wouldn't have had to camp. You could have stayed in a teepee. And I can see Sean in a teepee. I can imagine that.
No, that's a stretch too far. I would rather camp than glamp. But when I was younger, I went camping to the Reading Festival, and again that probably put me off as well. There is an element of anarchy at places like that, so I'll get down there one day, I'm sure. I'll check the weather forecast beforehand, though.
To be fair, last year, so I totally chickened out of camping. So I actually drove there on the first evening, the Friday evening, didn't have a drink. And then the Saturday got the bus there and the bus back. Because there's direct buses from Sheffield to Bakewell. It kind of takes forever. I got the wrong bus on the Saturday and had to go all the way around Chatsworth, which is actually a really nice, pleasant bus journey, but not when you're thinking, I'm doing a meet the brewery in 20 minutes, it needs to get a move on. So it was all a little bit kind of chaotic last year. But the year before, we kind of make last year sound like it was it was a total washout. And what you both say is quite right in terms of the fact that I think kind of this camaraderie of everyone just saying, well, look, we're here now and it's wet. And once you're wet, there's no point worrying about it anymore, is there? The thing that I didn't like last year was on the last day where it had just started to dry out a bit. So if you walk through some mud, there was a serious risk that your welly would not come with you. And that would have been disastrous. And it happened to a couple of people. Thankfully, I think we all managed to escape without that happening. But the year before then, so 2018, I mean, they could not have been more contrasting, could they, those two years, because Laura, as you touch on, kind of sitting on the hay bales and those memories of us just kind of sitting round in a circle, and I think we'd all individually got friends that were there. The guys from the Beer O'Clock show were over for it. I just remember it just being like, if you could pick a perfect beer experience that weekend, would not have been far off it, because it was great beer, it was good company, the weather was nice, everyone's so friendly. If I remember correctly, the only slight downside to it was they hadn't quite got kind of the beer tent organization quite right, and that sometimes you were queuing for a long time to get a beer. That's the only negative that I can remember from it. And Adam, I seem to remember me and you discovering that there was like a secret can bar that just sold cans of, was it Green Mountain and Dutty?
Yeah, like Dutty, yeah. Because it caused a few problems for us, actually, because we were trying to do, a bit of a chat with the Beer O'Clock show guys. And then I think I'd gone to the bar, and Martin from the Beer O'Clock show had gone to the bar, and we picked this time that we were going to record, and sort of 45 minutes later, there was still no sign of me or Martin. And then I think that was when we went, right, just grab some cans, because this is getting ridiculous. But I think Thornbridge got quite vocal about it afterwards, saying, yeah, we realised that probably didn't kind of pan out as we'd expected, and then fixed it for the year after. And yeah, they certainly did do that, because there were multiple bars and multiple options to get drinks the following year. And I know it was like, there was probably not the same numbers because of the weather, but it didn't really feel like there were any issues kind of getting to the bar, or, you just, if you found a busy bar, try the other one, sort of thing. And I found that kind of worked out pretty well last year.
Go and give it for anyone that's not been before. So that's me and Alice within us five. Give us some basics. And how many bars? How many food concessions? Is there entertainment and music on? What do we see when we get there?
So it's kind of like the first year was like in a bit of a bowl, and everything sort of sat around the edge of it. So you had a music stand, and you had sort of one bar, and some sort of children's entertainers and entertainment and stuff. But this year they kind of extended that. So I think there was two main bars, from what I remember, or maybe 3 bars, and then a row of the talks tents. So I think there was maybe 3 talks tents at that point. So I don't know if they alternated. I can't remember now, but there was kind of talks all the way through the weekend. And then again, the food was a bit more well thought out, which there was like a food area. I think there was probably up to about 10 different vendors in that. And then again, the little the sort of live music sort of area.
And,
which is like
are there hundreds there per session, thousands there in terms of numbers?
Session?
No. Per session. Is it an all day session?
Yeah, it's kind of what you buy a ticket for a day or the weekend, and then essentially you can go in and out as you will. I think it's kind of about 12 till 12, maybe. I think something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But
I think it's in the hundreds, isn't it? But it's not excessive. You've got plenty of space.
Yeah,
you're in a field there's just tons and tons of space. Even the year that it was sunny, you never feel kind of sort of penned in or anything like that. But I've never camped. Even the year when it was really sunny, I chickened out of camping. Similar to you, Sean, in terms of I had an awful experience at V97 festival in Leeds many years ago, which involved a tent being on fire. And since then I've been like, no, I don't camp, and I've stuck to that. And I was gonna do it last. I'd got a tent and everything. I was gonna do it last year, and then the weather was so bad that I still chickened out of it. So I can't really shed too much light on what the experience of camping is like. You've done it 2 or 3 times now, haven't you, Laura?
Yeah, I think I've been. This would have been my 4th year in a row. But Jim and I we used to spend sort of at least 3, that's part of 3 weeks a year at music festivals volunteering. And then, so I've kind of, it's something that we really enjoy doing anyway, just kind of camping and being involved in things like that. So they've always been really, something that we've always been really keen to do, Finefest and Peakender for similar reasons. So yeah, I love it. Just that, I think the worst bit for me about camping is it's that when the sun hits the tent, if it's warm and the sun hits the tent in the morning and you're a bit hungover and it's really, really hot and you can't be bothered to move, but you're also like, but I might die if I have to stay
Try
this
doing it
hot for any
try doing it
longer.
in Spain, Laura. I've done that too. It's like being born.
Or isn't that the point you get up and go and do beer yoga?
Oh yeah, well I did beer yoga a couple of years ago. I did McKellar Running Club last year, which was, I really enjoyed it. Jim was sick running up a hill. He should not have joined in. But yeah, it's nice because there's all sorts of different things to get involved in as well. So you know, I think even, you know, if you've gone for the experience rather than the beer, I think you would still have a really good time. And like the beer lineup, I think as well is quite nice because all the festivals that you go to that are, you know, entirely about the beer, and there's big queues for certain things, and it's really, you know, there's certain beers that are really hyped up, and it's like, is anybody actually, and you know, really just enjoying themselves, or are they too busy thinking about the beer? Whereas I think at Peakender there's a lot of, you know, if you want to just get 3 pints of Lucas and drink them, then that's absolutely fine, and there's no kind of it's just a bit more laid back, I think, beer wise, and a bit more accessible, which I think is reflected in the beers that are in the box that's been made, actually, because it's quite a sort of accessible selection of beers, you know, reasonable price point, and you know, beers that are quite, I don't want to say commonplace, that's not really fair, but you know, beers that are quite relatively easy to get hold of,
and popular.
Yeah, which is really nice to see that it's, you know, something a little bit different and something that people can just have at home over a sunny weekend and get stuck into without having to you know, muse on it too much.
Have we convinced you yet, Sean?
Yeah, well, my mind then strayed from beer yoga 1 year, the McKellar Running Club the following year, Hopcast wrestling. I was trying to come up with something perhaps for subsequent festival. Hopcast high jump, maybe. So I would think Adam's a good jumper. You'd have a chance at that.
Let's do it. Hopcast.
Any other suggestions? Welcome.
Sorry, Alice. I think I interrupted you there.
Oh no, it's fine. I was just going to say, I think weren't some of the early ones actually at Thornbridge Hall?
Yeah, I think they were.
Did any of you guys get to any of those ones? No.
I went for the day when it was up at Thornbridge Hall, which was, yeah, it was great. It was quite different. I think it was a lot smaller scale, and probably even more chilled out, I'd say. We went there that was quite a hot, lovely day as well. And just, yeah, really, really sort of tranquil, I think I would describe it, like really nice scenery and all of that kind of thing. So I don't think I drank very much that day. I seem to remember that the kind of sitting down to then get up and go to a bar felt like a lot of effort at the time because it was so hot. So it was not quite as boozy of a day, but it was really nice.
Yeah.
Alice, as part of your intro into Thornbridge, do you get a full tour of Thornbridge Hall? Is that part of the real induction?
Yeah, it is actually. I think on my first day or my second day, Dom took me up to the hall and then kind of showed me the brewery, but also showed me like all of the plants, all of the vegetables.
You mean mainly showed you that?
yeah, really nicely. Obviously, they're still brewing up there, so we do tend to go up there, and it's obviously still very much in action. So it's quite nice to go up, and as you said, Laura, it's just so nice to go up there because it's so calm and peaceful, and yeah, just beautiful, really.
I think the tour of Thornbridge Hall when Dom does it for everyone basically is just the gardens and his plants, and I think he's way prouder of that than anything to do with any of the beer that they brew there. But Adam and I have been up and had the it was supposed to be said the other day helping to brew, and we were just wandering around gardens, weren't we? It was great.
Yeah, I can't remember where that was, but that was a really hot day. But I think we helped muck out a Crackendale brew. It was his first time trying to catch the remnants of the mash tun into bags and just basically not really help out in any way at all, really. But it was good fun. That's
pretty much everything that we did, yeah.
But we all know Dom likes his plants more than his beer anyway. He's not scared to. Like, there's a brewery. Here's some really interesting plants.
So Alice, what's the experience of kind of working with people like Dom and Rob and the rest of the team at Thornbridge? Obviously, it's a team that's grown quite a lot over the last few years as the brewery has grown, hugely from what it was even when it first moved up to the Riverside site. So yeah, what's it kind of been like working with them?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I think obviously I started in October and then COVID kind of hit in March. So it's been a little bit different to probably what it would have normally been having the pandemic not happen. But no, I think what's so great about Thornbridge and the team is that kind of all of the guys that work there love beer and they just know what is expected of them. So we're just kind of pushing all of the QA consistently, and that's kind of what makes it so successful, I think. It's been really good. It's a fun team. It's quite a small team, so there's 6 brewers at the moment, and it's been really good actually. I think it's kind of shifted a little bit during COVID, but we are brewing like way more than we were before lockdown actually happened. So we've sort of really survived it, and come through kind of quite a bit stronger actually.
What was that kind of experience like? Because I would guess, I mean, it was, it's such a cliche now, but it was so unprecedented that I'd imagine the way that pretty much every brewery dealt with that was different. And for Thornbridge, probably had, the unique situation of already kind of having quite a lot of beer that went to places like supermarkets and other places that were still open. But obviously you also had all the Thornbridge pubs, and obviously other pubs as well that you normally supply beer to. So I imagine it probably changed things quite a lot in terms of what you were doing.
Yeah, definitely 100%. So at the start of lockdown, kind of like end of March when it first happened, we definitely scaled down production, and the team we lost a few members of the team just to isolation. So we were brewing, I think, about 15 times a week. It was still pretty good, to be honest. I think what has saved Thornbridge through that period is doing small pack and having the bottling and canning on site, and just being able to put it into supermarkets and also into the online shop. I think it was something ridiculous, like the online sales went up 1,000% or something like that. I'll have to check. I'll have to let you know. But yeah, they had to hire like way more people to go into logistics and sort out all of the online orders. So it kind of like was ticking over with bottle and can. And then sort of now kind of coming out of it, now that the pubs have opened, we are brewing at kind of 20 to 22 times a week. So it's slightly shifting back towards keg. But yeah, I honestly think that the actual online sales and the supermarket sales have stayed there. We're not kind of, drawing back on the brewing. It's like full steam ahead really, which is fun, which is great. It's fantastic.
Cool, good stuff. What have we got to come then in the coming kind of weeks and months from Thornbridge? I noticed that there are still new beers popping up here and there, and it's not as if kind of the year of beer just got kind of thrown under a truck and forgotten about. So what can we expect? What stuff are you working on that's exciting at the moment?
So we've got a few collaborations coming up. I'm not entirely sure if I'm allowed to say about them, but I won't say anything in case I get in trouble. But
nobody listens to this.
Very exciting, actually. I'm brewing them tomorrow, so yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. Did you try the Casperia? That was a new beer that we put out, a single hopped cash beer.
I've not managed to catch that yet.
Yeah, so that was in bottle. And yeah, we're just kind of trying to sort of keep the cask going as well. They're brewing up at Thornbridge Hall. So yeah, we've got a few kind of things coming up. It's quite a shame that year of beer has kind of fallen through, especially with the anniversary this year as well. But yeah, I think we're doing all right.
Something I wanted to ask you actually, when you mentioned about moving to Thornbridge, I was going to say, what kind of changes is it from a brewer's point of view? Do did you have to learn a lot of new skills? Do they do things more? Is it on a much bigger scale, and do they do more automated things, or are you still getting your hands dirty? And kind of what influence do you have as a brewer coming into a big kind of established, brewery like that?
So I think in terms of automation, compared to the brewery that I was at, it's way more automated. And the main thing I think is that they're just brewing so many more times a day. So at Brewster's I brew once a day, whereas at the moment it's 4. And I think it's that just kind of getting used to the shift pattern of kind of the early shift brewer coming in and then it going up until midnight. That was definitely something that I had to get used to. And yeah, just like new skills, learning how to kind of work the centrifuge that I'd never done before, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's been a lot to take in, but all of the training has been like really well handled and they really look after you. In terms of kind of influence, I was really lucky to do a International Women's Brew Day up at Thornbridge Hall. So we did like a bit of a homage to Lord Marples, and I did a ESB, but it actually we brewed it just before lockdown and it never made it to the pub because it went straight into cask. So I was like really gutted about that. Maybe we'll do it again, I don't know. But no, yeah, they like all of the guys in the brew team kind of had a recipe that they put forward for that year of beer, so they do kind of really push that creativity as well.
Alice, in terms of being part of the brew team, how does that work? You turn up, say, on the morning shift. How many people would be in that little team that you would start with? Do you have to, as a newer brewer coming there in October, do you have someone that mentors you and supports you whilst you're there?
Yeah. So when I started in October, I was actually on just like a 8 till 5 shift. And then I was kind of learning everything in the cellar then, and someone is mentoring you throughout all of that. Yeah. And then when you kind of move on to the brewing, some of like more of the senior guys, Ben Wood, I don't know if you guys know him.
Yeah, we know Ben.
Yeah, he trained me to brew. And then you just kind of get signed out, and then so we'll have someone in at 5:30, someone in at 7, 9, and then the late shift brewer comes in at 4. And she will stay till midnight.
Have you done all those shifts now then?
Yeah, I have. I actually, everyone kind of hates the late shift, the 4 till midnight shift. And it is a bit daunting, especially when you're kind of in the brewery on your own at 10 p.m. and everyone's left and you're sort of in charge of locking all the doors up. It is a little bit scary for the first couple of times. But
I think I would love the idea of being in a brewery by myself, 10 o'clock at night, and everyone else has gone. I could live with that,
No, you don't. I have dreams. I have nightmares about leaving like a valve on and the early shift guy coming in and there's sort of beer all over the floor or I don't know, yeast everywhere. But no, it's good. I think that variety is something that's really important for everyone to kind of move through that pattern and do like a variation of jobs. Yeah, it's good.
I was going to jokingly ask you which is your favourite James Buxton or James Buchanan. But they both have actually weirdly they've both been involved in this lockdown. So we've had James Buxton on and James Buchanan did a little video for us for his like Hopfest. So you're the third Thornbridge lockdown guest, I think, actually.
Alice, I don't know whether any of the others are aware, but I'm certainly not. But your family is a brewing family. So what's the brewery? Who is it that you? Eh?
So my family own a brewery back in Dudley. It's Batham's.
Right.
So that's been going over 140 years. So it's very much a traditional cask. It's a Victorian brewery, so malt way up high, and then it all kind of comes through down to the fermentation cellar. And so at the moment my dad and my uncle run it. My sister works there as well. And it's just a very local business. So they have I think it's 10 or 12 pubs that are Batham's pubs, and we supply those in the local area. And then we do like a little bit of free trade. So yeah, it's very, very different to Thornbridge. Sometimes I feel like I'm kind of pulled between tradition and craft, and I don't entirely know sort of where I stand sometimes. But no, I do love going back home. It's a really nice brewery. It's just so nice to see like the open fermenters and yeah, just that kind of heritage, I guess.
I heard. Sorry, yeah, I heard mentioned. Batham's mentioned earlier. I've not made the connection, unfortunately, but I mentioned that Dom always or regularly seems to be at a beautiful Batham's pub that perhaps is a favourite of his. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think it's probably the Bull and Bladder. So that one is actually
Yes,
that one
it is
next to the brewery. So that's probably where he's been. I think he took a holiday last year and just went back home and went round Batham's pubs.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Your interview must have been very easy.
Yeah, I do bring him some beer back sometimes, and he'll like slip me a few kind of vegetables in the car. So it's like we've got a good system.
How do your family feel then about you going off and working for another brewery rather than working for the family brewery?
I think that they are just very pleased about it, to be honest. My dad's got 3 girls, and I don't think he ever sort of thought that any of us would go into the industry. And they never. So my dad is 5th generation. I don't think that he ever kind of put that pressure on me or my sisters. But one of my sisters actually ran one of our pubs, and she's kind of gone into that kind of on trade side of it. But yeah, I think they're quite happy with it. Sometimes I take some sort of craft beer back for them, and they're like, "Oh, it's way too hoppy," and all this. Yeah, I'm trying to sort of bring them round to more modern styles and that kind of thing.
You think an open fermenter may turn up at Thornbridge one day for some special?
Maybe.
Obviously, you've picked Zara as your beer for this evening. Does that make it your favourite Thornbridge beer? Have you kind of got a top 3 or anything like that?
I really like Zara, and I think exactly what you said earlier is that you just kind of don't see it as much, and I think because of Lucas kind of being more popular, you don't tend to come across it, and I think you don't actually see it on draft that often. So that's like definitely a favourite. I just quite like that I can kind of drink it in the warmer weather, and it's just really refreshing. I actually really like Pondera, which is very different to Zara. Obviously it's super, super strong and quite chewy, but I quite like kind of that it's not, even though it's quite heavily hopped, it's still quite rounded. I quite like that balance. I don't know how you guys feel about Pondera.
I think we're all fans, yeah.
Okay.
I think Laura said it was the best West Coast style IPA she'd had since being on the West Coast, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's what you're...
Yeah, it was like the first drink I took. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm on holiday. I'm the kind of person that gets quite emotional about beer, so no, big fan.
No, it's a good beer. I've had it, get it when I can, really. And I think I might have said before, getting so used to drinking all these New England style beers. Sometimes it takes you a few cans of that kind of style beer to kind of remember what you loved about all these West Coast style beers, which we all loved before. Everyone wanted soupy kind of sort of juice, yeah. Yeah, it's a beer I go back to quite a lot. I've still never had it. Well, was it released before lockdown? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was. I think it was just before lockdown.
Yeah, I've not seen it anywhere to drink outside of a can format.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen it kind of anywhere on. Is it available on keg anywhere? Does it exist in keg?
Yeah, actually, I went to the Greystones the other day, and I was actually meeting some of the other brewers, and I turned up and they both had a pint of Pondera.
Wow.
On a Wednesday, and I was like, okay. I'm not going to join in on that.
They had it on at Jabberwocky last week as well, because I went in there and had, I was slightly more civilised. I had a 2/3 of Pondera, but then I had a White Russian with Nesquik breakfast boulders on top of it, which probably not the most sensible of combinations, but they were both very enjoyable.
Brilliant. And Alice, what we've talked a few times over lockdown, and recently we had a special episode for International Women's Day not long back ago. From your point of view, kind of being a female brewer in a world that we would all admit is kind of considered to be sort of male dominated. What's kind of your experience of the beer world been like from that kind of point of view?
Yeah, I definitely think that I kind of have a little bit of a different experience just because of having grown up with my family brewing. I definitely kind of know that they've never kind of thought, oh, you're female, so you won't be a brewer. It's just kind of, I've grown up around it and it's quite normal. It's definitely like normalized in my childhood. But yeah, it's just, I think, to be honest, it's just, for me, in my experience, it's just been subtle things that you might kind of not notice, like, straight away. So, like, just even when I did my master's in Nottingham, I was kind of one of 2 girls in a group of probably, like, 10 guys that were doing their MSc, which, it's totally fine. And I do see quite a few kind of women coming into it, and there's loads of women into it now, but I think, like with any of these kind of things, it's just going to take time for it to kind of filter through where women are sort of moving a bit more higher up. And I think that's probably when sort of major changes will come about, is when women are sort of in more positions of power in breweries, not just kind of like scrubbing the floors and cleaning up the mess, but obviously I work for Sarah as well, and she is like a very well respected brewster and has had her brewery for 20 years, and she kind of just had the opinion, you just sort of, you get on with it, and we can do a job as the same as a man, so that's kind of like her stance on it. But yeah, I do have like a lot of friends that are in it, but I think the majority is kind of dominated by white males, which is, yeah, a bit of a problem.
Hopefully starting to move in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, fingers crossed.
I've got a story actually from my master's. I remember sort of having a lecture about hop oils and hop products, and sort of using those kind of things instead of cones or pellets. And the lecturer said, oh, you can kind of single out a floral hop, and you can use that in beer for women. And I remember sitting there just kind of thinking, that's not exactly
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. But it's just little things like that, I guess there are wider problems with sort of branding and that kind of thing, but it's like you said, it's going in the right direction.
Brill. Okay. Sean, Pineapple Halcyon.
The word I'm going to use is smooth.
Smooth.
Much smoother than. I'm not sure. I perhaps had it before. I think it was released in bottle a while back, but beautifully smooth. And Halcyon is before we had a beer shop. Trips to Sheffield used to involve Dram Shop and Archer Road, but also a little trip to Waitrose, and Halcyon, Wellraven, things like that, Kipling, and the big 500ml bottles were there at the start of me really appreciating better beer. So I've got a soft spot for Halcyon, but I thought I'd throw the pineapple in just to make it a bit jazzier.
I can't remember who it was, but I seem to remember when Pineapple Halcyon first came out that did we have someone from Thornbridge on the podcast who was telling us it was an absolute pineapple and beer just do not work well together, and it was an absolute utter pain for them to brew, and no way would they ever do it again. So I was kind of quite surprised to kind of see it come around again, because I think it's quite messy. Alice could probably confirm or deny this one for us, that making a beer with pineapple does get rather on the messy side.
Yeah, definitely. I think it just kind of depends how you're putting it in, really. I'm not sure how the early one was done, but I actually wasn't involved in brewing this one. But I'm not sure how they sort of peeled or whatever they did with all those pineapples.
Probably tins of Princess or something like that. Much easier. Is your Zara as good as you expected it to be?
Yeah, it's really nice. How are your beers?
Yeah, Green Mountain is it's always been one of my kind of go-to beers. I think it's a cracking beer for the percentage that it carries. It's just brilliant, and I quite like the fact that it's in 330ml cans as well, because I think we live in an age where nearly everything now seems to end up in 440ml cans, which is fine. But sometimes you just want like a bit of beer, not like a huge amount of beer. So I love the fact that it's always there available in those 330s. Adam.
Sean, you stole my word, which is smooth. It's kind of unusual, this, because you think with pineapple being quite like slightly tart and a bit sort of sharp.
Yeah.
It feels quite bitter, but it's got like a smoothness to it. I won't say it's pillowy, Laura, but
Big pillars, I think.
It's decent. It's a big can as well, and it doesn't taste 6%. It's quite. If you are into kind of Club Tropicana, whatever it's called these days. What's it called? It changes.
Club Tropica.
Club Tropica. If you like that kind of beer with the sort of quite fruity adjunct to it, then go for it. It's interesting. There's a Polly's Brew Co mix as well. We don't really see many of them doing anything but straight up New England stuff with a few sours and stuff thrown in. But yeah, it's good if you can find it. Get a can. Sean, the pineapple halcyon, we did do on an episode, and it was one that you weren't there for. It was the Sheffield University Beer Festival episode, which we did.
I missed it. Well, I'm glad I managed to bring it, to reintroduce it. I
don't think I've had it since then. I think me and James managed to find it on keg at the beer house before we recorded the episode, and then got a taxi up to the venue, and then had it bottled.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. And Laura?
Mine's all gone. I really enjoyed it. I think I bought this one from a supermarket a while ago. I think probably could have done with drinking it when it was a little bit fresher, but still nice nonetheless. But not as good as the One Trick Pony that I had that is now my favourite Roosters beer. That's a rose lemonade sour. Am I allowed to pick roses or something I would never eat on their own, but that I really like them in beer?
That's quite a good one.
But yeah, that was a really nice kind of after work 4.1% really light sour that I drank in the boiling hot sunshine in the garden earlier this week. So yeah, I think that might have replaced Babyfaced Assassin in my mind as my favourite Roosters beer, but I still enjoyed it today. So
I would think, look, Babyface Assassin, Laura, I'm trying to think of another beer that went into can as early as that, and had a real influence. It was one of the very first modern craft hoppy beers to go into can. I don't know the Roosters committed to a canning line of their own very early on or not, but it was right at the start, and was one of the very few cans that we had in the shop right sort of early on in our existence.
Got a feeling it's one of the earlier editions of using Citra as well, am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Oakham Citra and Adnam's Ghost Ship proper early ones.
Yeah, I think Babyface was the one that took it to that sort of next level, 6% plus level, all Citra, I think. Yeah, definitely.
But I've just got images going through my head now of Laura walking down the street just eating people's roses out of the garden, just like obsessed with.
Sean, I do have an answer to your question now about ingredients. And
Come on then, Adam.
It's not quite as straightforward. It's cheating a little bit, but I think some of the...
Oh, my signal's
no.
gone. I can't hear what it was.
It's Adam. Adam's just
Can we all
frozen on
guess? Can we all get? I
This is
think
like
he was
a
saying
dramatic-
dolphin.
Quite interesting
us. A
ingredient.
dramatic end to EastEnders or something. Are you back, Adam?
Oh,
A cliffhanger.
did you all pause then? Sorry.
Yes,
No.
we all missed it. Did you
We
say
lost you.
dolphins?
You're just about to go.
You all paused to me then. So I was saying some of the kind of wild beers that have some crazy ingredients
Mushrooms.
that you would never kind of have as a handful. I'd really like a handful of those all in a mix and then shove them in my mouth. But then the beers come out quite well. I mean, I love my seafood, which is kind of a bit of a reverse one, but like the of the sea that is basically a bisque.
It
sour
was lobster and with the cockles in there as well.
Which I do like, but it kind of, I think, it sits into this realm of what you'd like in a beer and
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Without being rude, particularly as I'm the proud owner of 2 wild bottle openers that got some social media this week, I thought that beer was awful.
But the mushroom
we can-
is great. The mushroom, it's
Yeah.
good.
I love the way you describe yourself as being the proud owner of 2, only because you can't bloody well give the other one away.
We still need to do a competition for that,
They did
don't we?
actually, I don't know if
No,
anybody
we did.
noticed,
No one entered because no one wants it.
I don't know if anybody noticed, but they did actually reply to
They
that,
did.
saying if you try one of the particular horns of the whatever.
I never read the instructions on anything. I deleted that tweet.
You need
and
instructions
I'm
on a
going to
bottle
use it.
opener.
I want to use it as I see fit.
Okay.
Right, one last thing that we've got to do, which is our beer selfie. So we all need our cans and bottles. Just hold them up for a second in unison. I've got my dodgy light thing going on again there, so that's a better angle. And big smiles. And there we go. That will do. And yes, thank you all very much. Alice, thank you for joining us. Lovely for us to meet you. Hopefully, 12 months from now, we'll be sat in a field in the sunshine in Bakewell, all enjoying a beer together. Sean will have his tent up.
I'll come.
And,
I'll come.
Yeah, he'll be there.
I've got a tent. I've got a tent. I do like camping.
Well, it's a date then. We're sorted.
I just
then.
don't like
It's all-
camping with thousands of people.
Have you guys seen the weather outside right now?
Yeah, it feels like it reminds me of last year. It's very, very apt.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really good.
Brill. All right.
Cheers, Alice.
Thank
You've
you,
been-
everyone.
Cheers.
Have a-
Cheers.
Bye.
And we'll see you all in a
See
fortnight.
ya. Ta-da.